Welcome everyone to the annual training for the National 911 Profile Database. My name is Kate Elkins and I am the acting coordinator of the NHTSA National 911 program. Along with the rest of the team, I will be providing you with the information that you need to submit your data into this important data collection. Whether this is your first time submitting or you're an old pro, we want to thank you because the value of the National 911 Profile Database is the fact that all of you submit your data. The National 911 Profile Database would not be what it is today without your participation and continued support. So thank you again. I also want to thank the small army behind the scenes that does so much work to make sure that this happens and is successful. We're excited to share the improvements to the database this year. We're also very pleased to have Jill Coogan from the FCC with us today to talk about their 911 data collection effort and how the two coincide. I'd like to just go over a few housekeeping items before we kick it off. During the webinar, attendees will remain on mute, but we encourage you to submit questions and comments through the webinar using the chat feature. We'll then answer those questions during the question and answer portion at the end. If you experience any technical issues, please use the chat feature for assistance. This webinar will be 60 minutes long and is being recorded, and it will be posted on 911.gov for reference. In case you're not familiar with the 911 Profile Database, it is a joint effort of the National 911 Program and the National Association of State 911 Administrators. The data collection started years ago based on two questions. What data would be helpful for you to have at the state and local level? And what data would be feasible to collect? On the basis of these two questions, we have continued to collect this data with revisions over time to reflect changes in the evolution of 911. We collect and aggregate the data that you give us into a usable form because we know you need this data in order to compare yourself to other states and for your own state to provide justification for your budgets and projects that you choose to undertake. We understand from you that you value its collection over the years. At NASNA's request, we partner with the folks at the FCC to collect our data at the same time because we know you only want to go out to the locals once. So we will work together on the timeline for collection. What happens to your data once collected? Once data is submitted, they will be made available in the annual report online. We have come a long way since the pilot project in 2010 and the first published report using 2011 data. We hope that the new graphically depicted data will be another valuable data tool for all of you. The profile database provides you with useful information, which is broken out into two categories. Everyone submits data on a completely voluntary basis. We've gone from 28 states in the very beginning to 48 states in the Department of Defense. It has 56 data elements that are in these categories. Category 1 has basic demographic information that explains the profile of your system, your operations, finance, how many PSATs you have, and how many calls you take. This information is incredibly useful to the National 911 program, to the 911 community, and to your state. The second category provides information about where you are in terms of implementation of Next Generation 911. This helps us to create resources and develop other materials to help you and the rest of the community move forward with Next Generation 911. It also helps agencies like the Department of Defense know how to implement their 911 upgrades and also which states they need to target first for collaboration. I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who will go over the details of this year's updates and the process for submission. Karen, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Kate. I'm Karen Liddick, and I'm with 911 Authority, and I am on the project team for the 911.gov profile database.
Hi, I'm Laura Barton. I'm also with 911 Authority, and I'm also part of your profile database project team. Glad to be here with you today. Okay, so let's talk a little about today's agenda. There's a lot we'll be covering today to help make the database submission process as easy as possible for you. I'm going to provide background information on the database since some of you are new to it. I'll also review the data collection timeline for this year and then go into how to access the database, log in, view the database, and go over the database structure. And then I'll hand it over to Karen and she'll walk us through a live demo. One important thing to remember is the email for any questions or comments about the profile database, which is located at the bottom of the screen. It's 911database@redflashgroup.com, and we'll share that address later in the presentation, so don't feel like you need to write it down right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at that email address, and we'll be glad to assist you in any way during the process. Finally, we're going to end today with a Q&A session. Okay, let's look at the timeline. This is the time frame for this year's data collection. The survey will be open April 1st to June 1st. In that time frame, if you have any questions about any particular question on the survey or any data element, the team's available to offer support at any time. We're committed to working with you to accommodate the demands on your time, as well as the time of the local agencies that you'll be asking for data from. After the database closes June 1st, the team will spend a few months analyzing and validating the data, and then we may follow up with any individual states or territories on specific data elements. Then in December, the final National 911 Progress Report will be released. This report will contain the most current and complete views of 911 data at the state and territorial level. Now we're going to look at accessing the database homepage. This is where you would find the reports and statistics. Here, it's www.911.gov/project 911 profile database.html. So let's look over logging in. You'll want to navigate to 911data.redflash.com, which we'll also provide to you later. You'll toggle to the click to enter in the middle of the page, and that will take you to the login page. If you submitted data last year, you'll be able to use the same credentials you already have. If you're a new user, you're going to need to log into the page and click the option to register. After completing the registration, allow 24 to 48 hours to receive an email which will confirm that you've been approved. If you don't see that email, make sure you check your spam folder. You're also going to need to email 911database@redflashgroup.com and copy your state or territory's point of contact to verify that they've given you permission to submit the data for this year. Okay, a few tips on viewing the database. First of all, you'll want to view it in full screen mode. And also, if you're inactive for 30 minutes, the system will automatically log you out. But each time you log back in, it's going to take you to the first section that has incomplete entries. The system's not going to allow you to submit until you're completely 100% done with your entries. As long as you're in the data entry mode on the system, your state will appear yellow on the map. But don't be concerned about that because it will turn green when all of your questions are complete. So a little more about the database structure. It is structured into 10 sections with a total of 56 elements. If you require more information to understand a question, you simply click on the More Info tab, which you can see on this slide. Be sure to click Save or Save and Continue as you progress through the sections. And to be able to save all your work, all questions on that page must be answered. If you are unsure of an answer, you may check the box where it's showing unknown. And you can see that on this slide as well. And that will also allow you to continue on to the next section. After submitting a response to all the data elements, you'll be taken to a final comments page. This is a completely optional section of the survey, but it's an opportunity to provide comments, information, or suggestions to accompany your data submission. For example, if you're a little unsure of a response for a particular section, although we encourage you to reach out to the project team for assistance before you submit your final response, you can also include a comment here so that the project team can verify your data. Once you click Save and Continue, you'll be taken to the last page, which is the Overview and Submit page. Here you will see if there are any sections with missing responses. If there are, you simply click on the section and go back to that page. You can always navigate the section bar at the top of the screen to jump between pages as well. You can click Print Preview to print a PDF of all your responses before you submit. And when you're ready to submit your data, there will be a checkbox next to the bolded text at the bottom of the page. You click on that and you click the Submit Data button. Once you do so, you will not be able to make any further changes to your data unless you contact the project team. If you need to make any changes, once you contact us, we can help you through that process. And that's all for the submitting data. I'm going to hand this over now to Karen, and she's going to walk you through a live demonstration of the site.
Hi, I'm pleased to share a live demonstration of the database with you. As Laura already showed you, this is the login page. You have your credentials either from previous years or by requesting them from this year. You can simply enter them there. It'll be your official email and then your personal password. Mine's already in there, so I would click Login. I'll click a state for demo. This brings you to the first page of the profile database, section number 1. The first section, which I'm going to just explain, is an example of how to answer about the total number of 911 calls and the call types in your state. For example, question number 1 is enter the total annual number of 911 calls delivered to primary PSAPs in your state, even if not answered or no dispatch has occurred. If you have any questions, and obviously some of the questions are going to be a little more complicated than this one, you can click on the More Info button. This will provide additional explanation and definitions of the questions. But to make it simple for our example, we'll say your state had 1 million 911 calls last year. That's all we have to do is type in the number. Moving down, we ask you about your wireline calls, which could be maybe in this example, 100,000. We all know that the majority of calls are wireless calls, so we'll say this is 800,000. We'll say VoIP is 50,000 and MLTS is 50,000. You'll note that the breakdown between 2 and 5 add up to the total in question number 1, which is what we're hoping for in each answer. However, if, for example, your system does not differentiate between wireline and MLTS calls, you can leave MLTS empty and click Unknown. When clicking Unknown, this will provide data for that answer. We'll know that you answered the question. Okay, moving on to the next section, we'll save and continue. At the top, you can see that you can select any section to go to. We're going to go on to section number 8. This is about our NextGen 911 transition. I want to highlight question number 41 because we had a lot of questions about this in the past. It refers to NextGen 911 capable CPE and EZNets. And we had reworded this question to make it a little more clear. And we are simply asking for the number of primary PSAPs in your state that are connected to the EZNet and using the EZNet to perform location-based routing and call processing. Again, you can click on the More Information. In our example, we'll say there's 12 primary PSAPs that are using the EZNet for call delivery. Another type of question, however, that we have are in 42 and 43. In these, we ask what percentage of your population is served by these PSAPs. So we'll say 25. We ask that you use whole numbers here because you'll see that the system has the percent already built in. So we don't need decimals or percent signs, just whole numbers. Then in number 43, it's percentage of geographical area where the PSAPs are served by these capable services. So we'll put 50 in there. In our example, maybe it's a rural state. So we've completed this entire section. We'll click Save and Continue. That automatically takes us to section 9. One last section that we want to show you for the example is section 10. This talks about the maturity levels. This is also a very important section to use the More Info button. Because the maturity levels and definitions obviously vary for each category. So the first question is question number 48. What level of maturity is your state in for the category of governance? And you can see there is legacy, foundational, transitional, intermediate, and jurisdictional end state. They're all defined specific to the governance. So please review these and determine which is more applicable to your state, and then select it from the drop-down menu. We move to the category of routing and location. There are different maturity levels for this as well. You'll notice this in all the questions for section 10. We're simply going to save and continue. And this takes us to the final comments page that Laura talked about. Once we save and continue there, you'll see the overview and submit page. This is also very handy if you're not sure where you have blanks. At the end, you can go back here and it'll show you which sections still need to be completed. Once it's all complete, you can complete the checked box and submit the data, which would be here. It's not going to allow me to select it since I still have questions unanswered, but once you have 100% in each of those categories, it will allow you to click that button and submit the data. Before you do that, you can also hit print preview, and that will give you a PDF file of your answers to your questions. Okay, on the right-hand side, you can see there's data definitions, user guides, and helpful videos. The data definitions is a separate document that includes all the explanatory information that's attached in the More Info tab for each question, and it also provides directions and helpful hints. If you need assistance with any question, again, you're welcome to email the team. The user guide is a very technical document that explains how to log in. It goes over how to submit data, which I have just done in this, and it also includes the helpful videos. There's a video of how to log in. There's a video on section 10 and how to respond to the maturity level questions. And as we go through this year's data collection, if you have any topic or question that you think would be helpful or beneficial to anyone else, please let us know, and we'd be glad to create and put out additional resources. So next steps. After today, we would ask that as a state administrator or your designees provide 1 or 2 individuals that will submit the data for your state and make sure that they have an active account created. Review the data definitions documents, this webinar, and any other resources that you need to help you prepare to respond to the survey. Please do not hesitate to reach out to the project team for any assistance that we can offer. While you're doing that, National 911 program will be providing assistance to you as you need it. We'll continue to create resources and videos, as I said, based on input we get from you or issues that we notice going forward with data collection, because we want to make sure that we explain all the data elements well and everyone is answering based on the same concept. You'll also be receiving weekly emails that will have helpful tips, updates from the map showing what the participation level is and anything else that we can provide. Again, this is a reminder that the years, they do get confusing. This is the 2022 data collection year, but we're collecting 2021 data, as Laura mentioned. As we go through and receive the data, the team does review it and make sure that it's consistent and that we understand it so that we can properly aggregate it into the progress report. You may receive a follow-up email or question. Please don't be offended. That's not you. That's us trying to understand the data. So please don't be surprised if we reach out to you at any point for clarifications. I'll now hand over to Jill Coogan from the FCC.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jill Coogan, and I'm an attorney advisor with the FCC's Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Today, I'm going to be talking about 911 fees and 911 fee diversion. First, we'll take a look at how the FCC's annual 911 fee reports, including some tips on how to fill out the FCC's annual 911 questionnaire. Next, we'll discuss significant recent developments related to 911 fee diversion. This includes recent congressional legislation to address 911 fee diversion, new FCC rules on 911 fee diversion, and the formation of a 911 strike force that issued a report to Congress with recommendations on how to stop 911 fee diversion. Let's start with the FCC's annual 911 fee report. The New and Emerging Technologies 911 Improvement Act of 2008, also known as the Net 911 Act, requires the FCC to submit an annual report to Congress on collection and distribution of 911 and enhanced 911 fees and charges. Since our first 911 fee report in 2009, the FCC has issued 13 911 fee reports. A major focus of the FCC's annual 911 fee report is the issue of 911 fee diversion. In other words, each year the FCC analyzes and reports to Congress on whether a state or other jurisdiction's 911 fees and charges are being used for any purpose other than to support 911. In addition to fee diversion analysis, the annual report includes state-by-state data on, for example, 911 call volumes, the number of PSAPs, 911 expenditure categories, implementation of next generation 911, and 911 cybersecurity expenditures. Let's turn back now to the specific issue of 911 fee diversion. One of the principal sources of funding for 911 is fees assessed by states on a per-line basis for phone service. Service providers typically collect these fees from consumers through their monthly subscriber bills, then remit the fees to the governmental authority assessing the fee. However, sometimes states and other jurisdictions divert these 911 fees and do not spend them on the intended 911 related purposes. When a state diverts the 911 fees it collects to a non-911 purpose, even if that other purpose is an important and worthwhile public safety purpose, the state is reducing the amount available for essential 911 services. For the FCC's annual 911 fee report to Congress, we analyze how each state has allocated and spent the 911 fees it collected during the year in question, and whether the state has diverted the 911 fees to non-911 related uses. If the state has diverted 911 fees, the FCC designates that state as a diverter for the relevant calendar year. The FCC issued its 13th annual 911 fee report in December 2021. You'll notice here at the bottom of the slide, we list the FCC webpage where you can view all the FCC's annual 911 fee reports, and also each state's 911 questionnaire response for each year. Fee diversion is a significant problem in the United States. Each year, the FCC annual 911 fee report identifies a number of states as diverters, and a few states persist in the practice year after year. The 13th report found that in calendar year 2020, 5 states had diverted 911 fees: New York, New Jersey, West Virginia, Nevada, and New Mexico. 4 of these states were also designated as diverters for calendar year 2019 and in multiple prior years. The 13th report found that in calendar year 2020, the 5 diverting states diverted a total of approximately $207.8 million, or approximately 6.54% of all 911 fees collected by all states and jurisdictions in 2020. From 2012 to 2020, states and jurisdictions diverted over $1.68 billion in fees collected for 911 and E911. If you look now at the chart on this slide showing a summary of some data from the FCC's annual fee reports from 2015 to 2021, you can see some highlights of our findings. Each report covers the prior calendar year. So, for example, our 13th report in 2021 covered states' 911 activity in calendar year 2020. Now let's take a look at FCC data collection for the annual 911 fee reports and some tips for completing the FCC's annual 911 fee questionnaire. Each year, the FCC sends out a detailed form to 56 U.S. states and jurisdictions to collect 911 fee data for the prior calendar year. Here are some tips for filling out the annual questionnaire. These tips focus on some common issues. Please use the word fillable form questionnaire that we provide. This allows us to automatically and efficiently import the data into our system. Please do not try to alter the form or turn it into a PDF. When states do this, we have to ask them to resubmit on the appropriate word fillable form. Also, many states submit the appropriate word form, but also submit a PDF copy of the same document. Please do not include a PDF copy, as this requires us to compare the two to make sure they're identical. Next, only report on calendar year data, not fiscal year data. When the questionnaire asks for a numerical response, such as the total number of primary PSAPs or the cost to provide 911 service, please provide only a numerical response or a short non-numerical response such as unknown, none, or N/A. Don't include any narrative explanation or qualifier such as approximately $4 million. Instead, put that in the related addendum section box on the form. It's fine to use dollar or percentage signs, decimal points, and thousand separator commas in numeric responses. However, to facilitate the Bureau's calculations for the annual fee report, please avoid straight characters such as asterisks, parentheses, or brackets in the numeric responses. And here are two big tips. First, states should submit a single questionnaire form for the entire state, not multiple FCC questionnaire forms completed by local jurisdictions. For example, in prior years, one state submitted individual FCC questionnaires filled out by some of its counties, saying that only those counties had replied to its request for data. The state did not consolidate them into a single questionnaire response form for the state as a whole. The state should have consolidated the data in a single questionnaire form for the state, using sums and averages as appropriate, and adding an explanation in the relevant addendum sections if necessary. Second, states should include all requested data on the state questionnaire form itself, not just attach or refer to supplemental materials that may possibly contain some requested data somewhere within them. For example, one state last year submitted a questionnaire form with multiple responses that just said, "See attached spreadsheet." The state attached a long and detailed county-by-county Excel spreadsheet without any appropriate consolidation of data for the state as a whole on the questionnaire itself. Another state submitted a detailed supplemental letter containing some requested information that was not on the form itself. States may submit supplemental materials as long as the questionnaire form itself contains all requested data. And finally, you may find that the annual 911 fee report questionnaire looks a little different this year. One reason is that, as we're about to discuss, there have been some recent 911 fee rule changes by the FCC. Some of these changes may be reflected in revisions to the annual questionnaire. So just a heads up to pay attention to any changes when filling out the questionnaire this year. And now here's an update on significant recent developments on 911 fee diversion issues. At the end of 2020, Congress enacted new legislation to address 911 fee diversion. In the Don't Break Up the T-Band Act of 2020, which is Section 902 in Division FF, Title IX of the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2021, Congress issued new mandates related to preventing 911 fee diversion. Section 902 directed the FCC to do two things. Number one, issue new regulations on 911 fee diversion, and number two, create a new strike force to study and issue a report on 911 fee diversion. The FCC has now completed both these congressional mandates. First, we'll discuss the requirements for new FCC regulations. Section 902C required the FCC to, within 180 days, in other words, by June 25, 2021, issue final rules designating purposes and functions for which the obligation or expenditure of 911 fees or charges by any state or taxing jurisdiction authorized to impose such a fee or charge is acceptable. In June 2021, the Commission issued a report and order with rules on 911 fee diversion. You can view the report in order at the address shown at the top of the slide. The final rules became effective on October 18, 2021. Among other provisions, the new rules define acceptable types of 911 fee expenditures and those that would constitute 911 fee diversion, with illustrative examples of each. Under the rules, acceptable expenditures for purposes of Section 902 include, but are not limited to, PSAP operating, personnel, and administrative costs, pre-arrival instructions, emergency notification systems, Next Generation 911, and cybersecurity. Unacceptable expenditures include, but are not limited to, transfer of 911 fees to a general fund or other fund for non-911 purposes, using 911 fees to construct non-public safety communications networks, such as commercial cellular networks, and using 911 fees to pay for public safety equipment or infrastructure that does not, quote, directly support providing 911 services. The rules also allow states and taxing jurisdictions to petition the FCC for further clarity on whether other types of 911 expenditures are acceptable or unacceptable. In addition, the rules provide a voluntary safe harbor option for multi-purpose public safety fees that include support for 911 services, provided certain requirements are met, such as segregating and not commingling the 911 portion of such fees after collection. The new 911 fee diversion rules can be viewed at 47 CFR sections 9.21 to 9.26. The Commission has received 2 petitions for reconsideration of its June 2021 fee diversion report and order. One is from the Boulder Regional Emergency Telephone Service Authority, BRETSA, and the other is from a group of 16 Colorado emergency telephone service entities. These 2 petitions are currently under consideration by the Commission. In December 2021, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau issued a public notice announcing the filing of the petitions and deadlines for filing oppositions and replies. The comment cycle concluded on January 18, 2022. Turning now to the second major congressional mandate for the FCC, Section 902D required the FCC to establish the Ending 911 Fee Diversion Now Strike Force. The statute directed the 911 Strike Force to study and report to Congress by September 23, 2021, on how the federal government can most expeditiously end diversion by a state or taxing jurisdiction of 911 fees or charges. Congress spelled out the composition of the strike force in some detail. As required by Section 902, the strike force membership was comprised of state and federal officials, state 911 administrators, public safety organizations, consumer groups, and organizations representing 911 professionals. The 911 Strike Force held its first meeting on June 3, 2021, and its members worked hard over the summer to meet a very challenging schedule. The 911 Strike Force submitted its report and recommendations to Congress on September 23, 2021. The report can be viewed at the address at the bottom of the slide. And finally, here are 2 additional significant provisions put in place by Section 902. Section 902 prohibits any state or taxing jurisdiction identified as a fee diverter in the Commission's annual 911 fee report from participating or sending a representative to serve on any committee, panel, or council established to advise FirstNet or in any advisory committee established by the Commission. And Section 902 requires states and taxing jurisdictions that obtain federal grant funding under Section 158 of the NTIA Organization Act, 47 U.S.C. 942, to participate in the Commission's annual data collection. Thank you for the opportunity to update you today on 911 fee developments. We look forward to seeing your annual data submissions this year. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions.
Please remember to submit your questions through the chat feature. And thank you for your time. The recording will be available via the helpful video link, as I said, on the website. Thank you.